Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from another London afternoon. And what a day in the skies it has been. Right now, the sun is shining. Yay, it's nice, but it's been a mix of wind and rain and that typical, I guess, London weather, which is, to be expected. But I've had a wonderful time catching up with some of my Glocal citizens, brethren here and family. And so I'm happy to wrap up my tour of interviews while I'm here with the next in the series of conversations with our collaboration with the LiveWell Initiative's Women of Africa Post-Pandemic Empowerment and Advocacy program. This is a program of the LiveWell Initiative, which is based in Lagos, Nigeria, with the support from Gilead Sciences USA. Over the series of conversations and getting to know more about the practitioners participating in dialogue centering health, wellness, and economic resilience. So I will get to the bio of today's guest, who is a leading management consultant in Africa. He's the first youth performance consultant in the world. That is a wonderful accolade. And youth performance is a really big issue. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. He has worked in 6 consulting firms over the span of his nearly 25 years of working experience, also working with several other organizations in capacities ranging from human resource manager, GM strategy and innovation, business service manager, project manager, advisor, and HR generalist. He is currently the managing director of the advisory firm Purple Prime Limited, with a focus on business advisory and public sector advisory practices. Adebowale Jeff Johnson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Florence. Thank you for having me.
It is so nice to meet you and to introduce you to our Glocal citizens audience. And so let's get started. Let's jump right in. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
Okay, so I am from Lagos State in Nigeria. The best way to put it, from the suburb of Lagos, the part of Lagos where you have the indigents who are like the true ethnic owners of the land, if you want to say that. They call us the Ijebu people. Well, from that part of Lagos, Ijebu Waterside, just to add, a bit more color to it. Because when you mention Ijebu, everybody says Ogun State, but I'm not from Ogun State. I'm from Lagos, where you call the Ijebu Waterside. I'm resident largely in 3 states. I'll be 4, if you may say: Lagos, Ogun State, Abuja, and in Kano. And the essence of all those locations are, all those 4 locations literally almost on a monthly basis because of the transactions and engagements that I have in those cities. So yes, I am everywhere across the country.
Okay.
What's my craft? Okay, yes, I'm a management consultant in a general term, and my focus is on advisory. That is, for us, we focus on trying to help our clients grow. So basically, we advise and provide some sort of business advisory. One of the practice areas, we provide human capital advisory, focusing on people. On the business side, a lot around processes, starting from feasibility studies, business plan development, all of the strategy and stuff that helps businesses grow and, perform, of course, including performance management. We also do the public sector advisory. And under that, portfolio, we try to help the public sector, government from local to federal. And some of the key areas we look at is about internal revenue generation and mobilization. We also focus on tax and tax improvement for states, local, state, and federal government. We do project financing, which we also help to raise funds for project at the public level. And we do a lot of PPP sort of engagement. And that's one of the reasons I'm in Kano as much as I'm in Ogun State. Yeah, we do real estate advisory. That's also one of the practice areas. The essence of that for us is because I sort of had a stint in real estate advisory, real estate research. And so I do sort of provide advisory to clients on how best to use their real estate investment and how to make the best of it. So from research and come, to the point of doing global research on what's the future of real estate. And we are advising our clients now on how best to use their real estate investment. And interestingly enough, we have delved into mining as a different, business entity. We are also into agriculture. We currently have 20,000 hectares of land that we're about to start cultivating. Hopefully it will meet the season for next year, since we couldn't meet up with the rainy season for this year. 20,000 hectares of land in Niger State. And finally, one of the other most important area for us that we are looking to also kick off would be a sort of an entertainment hub where we can harness the next generation. The next generation are driven largely by content, if you like to generalize it that way. So we're trying to create an entertainment hub to be able to harness talent in that regard. So yes, those are all of the different areas. I'm a politician.
Okay.
Yes, I don't run away from that title, because people had said, hey, don't ever refuse to actually acknowledge that you have played active participation in politics. And so I had 2 circles of electioneering. And so, yes, I'm a politician as well. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. Are you currently serving in a public service role?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, I'd engaged twice, but yet it hasn't been. I've not won any election to the point where I'll be serving officially.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm doing advisory to some state and local government across the country.
So that's interesting, because as a craft, everything that you described, I would say, okay, he is basically a consummate problem solver, which is what a lot of us who are consultants are. We just have this curiosity and I think these ways of thinking innovatively about problem solving. But now when you say about being a politician, what attracts you to the idea of that? Because in my mind, the politician part is the business side of public service. And so if that, I'm assuming that you say that, they're like, that makes sense, because that is what your advisory encompasses. But tell me more.
Okay, so basically, over the years, I would say exactly in 2005, I got the opportunity to review the President Obasanjo's blueprints, the NEET document, of course, under the umbrella of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. My then director gave me the opportunity to actually review the document and make recommendations on the education system of the country. And there I introduced the PPP initiative of running education in the country, howbeit still make it free education, just like a great leader, the late Awolowo, had recommended, as to free education as a way of opening the minds of the young people for them to actually truly lead the future. So yes, that was important, but in the daily operational engagement of this school, I recommended that private sector should run that daily operation, because they would be more ingrained in management than the public sector had been doing. And so the public sector should continue to focus on curriculum development policies and, monitoring and evaluation. And so from there, I started to have more deeper conversations in the education sector and the youth engagement. And of course, that's what brought me into youth performance. And so I started to do a lot of research around youth and youth engagement. And then I started to get away from youth engagement to more of looking at how we can get youth to be more productive and creating habits in them that foster productivity rather than just engaging, because you could actually engage, have conversations, and it doesn't go beyond conversations. So that's how I started the journey, and I wanted to do more in the public sector. And I looked at it that the policies that ran most of the business and business engagement are actually fashioned out by politicians who are in the house, the legislative house, whether at the state or at the federal government level. And we still have some bicameral, legislative system, copying the United States, having the Senate and the House of Representatives. But what I was questioning was the fact that we had those houses and how much do they really sort of engage with the private sector to know what bills and laws, to create the best and enabling environment for business to thrive. And so that is why I decided that I wanted to go into the house and use my years of experience in the private sector to have more engagement with the private sector, push more bills and laws and acts that will foster more of production and productivity in the private sector to be able to drive the economy. So that's how I got into active politics.
I love it. Like that's a great, I absolutely concur and can understand how you ended up in that place, because my background was also in education. And so that's, I started by seeing, okay, here's a problem. And so then, I thought education policy, and then I settled on economic policy and economic development, because then that similarly, how do we activate? How do we actually do the things that are necessary to impact people's lives? And so this is where you became the youth.
Absolutely, yes.
The
youth performance consultant.
Youth performance consultant. Yes, exactly. And so now having that is part of, who you are. What kinds of, in those years, the years since working on that, so what kinds of activities have you been able to actually implement that are in that vein, just to kind of get a sense of how the youth are being impacted?
Okay, so what I started with was to start having conversations at university campuses. My first step was at the North American University in Benin Republic, where I met youth, of that particular university. At that time, I think the university had close to 90% of students from Nigeria, and this was in Benin Republic. And this was almost like the beginning of a lot of Nigerians going across the border to Benin Republic and Ghana to study in their tertiary education. And of course, part of our research showed that we were having, for lack of a better word, and just to put it out there the way it was that we were having unemployable youths. So we had quite a lot of graduates or unemployable graduates. So we had lots of graduates, but they weren't ready for the job market. So they could easily own a certificate, but couldn't really engage actively. They couldn't really engage actively at the workspace. So it became sort of a conversation for me to start to go to university campuses. So I visited quite a few number of university campuses. In fact, that year, for the next 12 months, I was almost on a journey from one university to another. The great Ife, I've spoken there. The great UI, one of the oldest university in Nigeria, University of Ibadan. I'd been to Mina, I'd been to Ilorin. I was in Olabisi Onabanjo University, and I spoke in Ogun State, and I spoke at many platforms. I was in Unilag. I've been around quite a lot of schools, trying to just sort of, deliver to them what was happening at the corporate world and how the youth needed to be much more ready for what was ahead of them. And it wasn't just about the academics and getting certificate and getting a first class or a second class upper and all of that, but pretty much more owning their skills, interpersonal skills, leadership skills, personal effectiveness, time and stress management. So all of the necessary soft skills training that were required was now, was my focus. One of the other key areas that I actually focused on was the root appreciation. I call it root appreciation. And for me, it was basically about parenting. You must definitely come back to your roots. You must understand where you are from for you to be able to know where you're going. And again, we're talking, to global citizens. So Africans in diaspora, let me put it that way, not just Nigeria. Africans in diaspora must never let go of their roots. And I think, of course, that community, of people globally understands that they are, first of all, Africans before you can talk about whether you're an African American or you are African, Welsh or business, whatever else you want to call yourself, you are first of all an African. And so you must understand where you're coming from to be able to appreciate where you're headed. So for me, it was a lot of conversations that needed to happen as to the right value system that, this our youth must begin to embrace. Before the event of the drug use and all of this conversation globally, I had been speaking, against that and speaking to the future, that I hope we don't get to the point where our youth would get so hooked to drug abuse to the point that it begins to shape their performance and they won't be able to do anything, not for the world, but not even for themselves. They won't even be valuable to themselves anymore because they are now hooked, on drugs and the abuse of it. So those are some of the things that, I kind of like put out there. And my sort of focus about changing the habits and, of course, looking for the cues and replacing it, because it's almost impossible to jettison a habit totally. It's about replacing it, changing it with something positive. If you've created a negative habit, the only way you can work on it is over time, replace it with a positive one so that the person doesn't feel that gap and, of course, make it worse at the end of the day.
Sure. Makes sense. So you kind of alluded to the reason why you are in the 4 places that you call your local. And so I want to drill down a little bit and ask you the why, the where. So how did you come to be living, working, and playing in where you currently are residing or where you're located?
Interestingly enough, this sort of same question came up, to me yesterday night. I was on Instagram Live. It's just a question of tell us about you and where you started from. And so literally, I will say that career-wise, it's more or less like someone saw me in a place of worship and saw my passion for the work there and decided to invite me over to the office. And that's how my career sort of started. Almost 25 years. By December, it's going to be 25 years exactly. December 1999. I was just literally in a church, a Redeemed Christian Church of God church called Life Spring. Was in Bagada, Phase 1. And I was just there, just doing everything I could. I was a young boy that just got out of secondary school. And I was engaging with everything, would get a generator 2-3 streets away from church, get it to the church venue, have service, whether it was during the week or it was a weekend. I will, set up sound. I will play the drums. I was just always there. And this particular gentleman who was heading a business unit, Thomas International, back then in Phillips Consulting, just literally saw me and then, was driven by my passion to work and just said, you know what, I'd like you to come and work for me in my office. And that is how the entire journey just, more or less, kick off. And that's just it. It was there in Bagada Phase 1. It was a Redeemed Christian Church of God. And my first job was as good as I was dispatching Christmas gift that December. And the next year I was scoring script. A year or thereabout more, I started administering the same test for selection and training. And then from then on, I started doing many more of the projects. And that's how I started my consulting career.
Okay. All right. Okay. And that is that in Lagos?
Yes, in Lagos. Yes.
Okay.
Lagos.
Okay. Yeah. I'd never heard of those phases. I've heard of Lekki and all those things, but I never heard. So is that on the mainland?
Yes, on the mainland. Yes.
Okay.
Bagada on the mainland. Yes.
Okay. Got it. I'm learning so much so many new things about Lagos in particular and Nigeria in general. So thank you for that. So you started to kind of say that's how you got your start in your career and where you are. Beyond that, what do you think inspired you to just generally, and from an academic perspective, pursue, your academic pursuits so that you kind of refined your craft or your toolkit to be able to do the work that you do?
Okay, so initially, I think while I was in primary school, I wanted to be a surgeon, a medical surgeon, and it just went from one thing to another. At some point, I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be a petrochemical engineer. Then, because I was, of course, better in physics and mathematics than I was with chemistry and biology anyway, I decided that, okay, I should just go for engineering. And I started an ordinary national diploma from Lagos State Polytechnic in mechanical engineering. Did that 2 years. And I was also working at the same time. For the next 2 years after that, I was working more or less full time. And there I decided that I needed to do a shift into whatever was going to help me to become better at consulting. And so I was shopping for, a course that I could do. What was the best course that I could do? I started, searching, and I was trying to get into a proper university instead of going back into what we call the Polytechnic, which is more technical, than the university. So I said, let me leave the technical side, and I wanted to go into a university and get a BSc rather than an HND, and all those conversations. So at the end of the day, a younger friend mentioned to me that I could do data processing. And from there, a diploma in data processing, Labison Banjo University. And from there, I could then study computer science in the same school. So I decided to go for that. But after my diploma in data processing, I was then handed statistics, BSc statistics. So I said, wait, what's going on? Okay, mathematics, statistics. Well, yeah. And then I got a windfall that this was actually even still very good for me because, like I said, I was doing testing and the tool that I was using is actually a psychometric tool for personality profile. That's Thomas International. So, of course, with statistics, I could do a master's in psychometrics, and that can help me advance my skills, in profiling people about their temperament, about who they are, and all of that. And of course, I was already developing leadership capacity by doing a lot of studies in leadership. I was doing a lot of research in leadership development, reading about the army and how leadership is in the military sector, global leadership, reading Jack Welch's book, John C. Maxwell's books and stuff like that. So I wanted to, earn that, sort of badge in capacity development, leadership development, and soft skills development, and all of that. So that's how I went to study statistics, first of all, in Olabisi Banjo University. After a while, when I left working here and there, I got the opportunity, of course, shortly in between Nigeria, Ghana, and of course, going to Benin Republic and traveling around. I decided to do a business administration, BSc in business administration, and I further did a master's in business administration from EFRAB in Benin Republic, which of course also helped me at least get a master's and, was supposed to sort of launch me further into my career in consulting. And just this year, in the journey of my leadership and, teaching people and developing capacity, I was given an honorary doctorate degree, strategic leadership by Miles. Miles Business School. Thank you. So that's why, so I kind of like have my doctorate, though, albeit it's honorary.
Sure.
And the hope for me is that I will be able to further that and possibly get maybe a full-blown PhD. And of course, it has to be in leadership because, of course, then it helps me to become much more grounded as a consultant. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, that's very interesting. So, we know that the borders that we live by are not necessarily of our design. And so when you mentioned going to the program in the Benin Republic, first of all, was it a remote program or was it a physical program? And if it were physical, how did you kind of navigate, or was there really a difference? Like, are we that different? So tell us about that, Benin Republic is between Togo and Nigeria.
Yes.
And then the other side of Togo is Ghana. And so that whole coastline is, in my estimation, the same peoples, of difference. Absolutely. But I want to get your perspective on how you felt in being a Nigerian in the Benin Republic.
Thank you. So this journey for me was also pretty much about root appreciation and understanding, the history of of, if you may, let's use the word the Yoruba people. And like I always say, we the Jebus had our civilization dating many centuries. The Bini Empire, as it's been called, also had their civilization many. The Oyo Empire spread, I believe, to the east of Ghana, of course, during those periods. So what I used to tell people, in fact, when I told a story around it, and somebody looked at me and said, hey, "Where do you get all of this information from?" I say, "Yes, well, for my understanding and doing my research in root appreciation, I had to do some visits. Going to Benin, going to King Tofa's palace, and seeing all that is going on there. Going to Dahomey and." Understanding that this was an empire, Dahomey, was a civilization that was under the Oyo Empire. And knowing that my name, Adebowale, is a common name in the east of Ghana. There's some people who bear the same name, and they're Ghanaians, they're not, in quote, Nigerians. And the borders that existed in Africa existed because the British came, and of course, there was, the struggle between the British and the French to sort of colonize Africa, and they divided Africa amongst themselves. And so Nigeria is smack in between, sort of sandwich in between Francophone countries, French on top, French on the right, French, English
Same
on
as
the
Ghana.
left, and Ghana then became, sort of our own English, full English country, and the like. So if you look at it, if you spread the West Africa all the way to Liberia, like I always tell people, an entire community or an entire village in Osun State in Nigeria literally resides in Liberia. Like, is it Liberia or Sierra Leone? Is it Liberia or Sierra Leone? Sorry, Sierra Leone. Actually, I think they had they kind of migrated, literally from Nigeria to Sierra Leone. And of course, even if you talk about the way our culture, you will see a lot of similarities, amongst us. So we are just one and the same people that over time has sort of transformed, based on some relationship engagement and interaction and all of that. So yes, while I was doing the school, it was sort of hybrid. There were days I was there physically and of course writing exams. There were days I would go just to be in class and sort of fraternize with classmate, but most of the time I was in Nigeria working because at that time I had projects, I had stuff I was doing, so it was sort of hybrid for me, going through that period. But again, like I said, it was so much of a time for me to research about who we are and how best we can relate. If I may add, before I stop, there was a time a lot of people, and I'm not sure what had happened in Ghana at that time, but there was a time a lot of Ghanaians were in Nigeria. We had Ghanaian teachers, maths teachers, English teachers, and all. One of my very good friends who I worked with, Rachel, and in Ghana for the 6 months I told you I was in Ghana. Our father was a teacher in Nigeria, spoke Yoruba very fluently. And, we had, good conversations when I met him. He's late now. May he so rest in peace. It was Mr. Luda was somebody that, sitting down with him, speaking Yoruba, literally in Ghana was just, interesting and mind blowing for me. So yes, it was just an interesting moment of my life. The 6 months was amazing in Ghana.
Nice. I like that. That's. We're happy that you felt welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, I'm curious about your Glocal speak. So I'd like you to share a word, a phrase, or a saying that's a meaningful part of your local experience, wherever you have felt local, and why or how you've come to value it as a Glocal speak.
Okay, so there's something that my father taught me, and it still resonates with me. He's still very much alive. He's a young man. Arguably, I probably even look older than he does. because I'm keeping beards and I have lots of white hair all over my face. But
all that consulting. All that consulting.
You won't see all of that with him. But he used to tell me, and it has he's always been with me, and I've seen it everywhere, including, like I said, my journey through the West African state. He says it, and I will just say it in English, just so that it's that wealth, money in itself is insignificant. Will finish, like it's insignificant. Will finish, but people will remain for you. Those who are Yoruba will understand that. If they hear it again. Okay, maybe I should say it in Yoruba.
Yes, I was going to say, please say it in Yoruba.
Owó máa tán, èèyàn ló máa kù. Owó máa tán, èèyàn ló máa kù. So now money will finish, but people will remain. This taught me literally to place value on people than on money.
Yeah.
Right. That's just the basic thing. Place value on people because they are indispensable. There's no amount of money that can buy you a relationship. There's no amount of money that can buy you the worth of a human being. So when you focus on, people and you let money be, then you would be wealthy, because even if you don't have cash at hand and you don't have money in your bank, but you have much more than necessary, because people will stand up for you at the time you need them the most. And so that has been a sort of a foundation for me, so much so that every day of my life, I seek to value relationship. I seek to value people. I seek to value people's time. I seek to anything, relationship, community, and lives and all of that. I value that over what benefit I can get as to money. So when people ask me to even do things for free, I don't even overthink it. I do it because I know that there is every reason for me also to demand value out of them, and money will always follow value. So if I do give a lot of value to you, I expect that at the end of the day, value would also return back to me. So that, I think, would be my major focus.
Yeah, I like that. Say it again in Yoruba, please.
Owó máa tán, èèyàn ló máa kù.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm trying.
You're trying.
I always tell my Yoruba guests how close I feel Yoruba is to Ga, which is my mother's tongue and father's tongue, which they didn't speak to me growing up, but I can pick somehow as I'm learning the Ga more. I mean, but just hearing Yoruba, I hear the same types, and the Ga people I know come from Yoruba land. So
so there was a guy, and there's a recent movie, shot in Nigeria. I think it's on Netflix, Basharun Ga. And I'm sure that is, so there's Basharun Ga. I'm sure that's where your people came, because yes, even in the movie, there was some of his people had to leave your empire. And of course, one of his children, I think one or two of his children used to go to Dahomey to collect royalties for the Oyo Empire. So I'm sure it's the same, one and the same people. But of course, over the years, language, even Yoruba in itself, like I always say, if you call an Ekiti man, Odo man, Ijebu man, Egba man, all Yorubas, then are you then saying that they speak the same language? And the answer is no. Their so-called Yorubas are different. The dialects are different. So what you will hear an Odo man say, an Ekiti man will not say it in the same sentence. An Ijebu man will say something totally different. And in fact, even in Ijebu, there are like, I think, about 2 or 3 variations of Ijebu. So, you have the Remo, you have the Ijebu Remo, you have the Ijebu, and then you have, there's another one, I'm not sure, the Waterside, so they're just different versions of, the different tribes. So, yes, I believe we're all one and the same, all the way to Ghana and maybe beyond, all the way to Sierra Leone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. Nice. Thank you for that. And so, speaking about relationships and valuing people, I want to talk about the post-pandemic empowerment and advocacy summit or program that you were part of. And how did that relationship come about? And what are you looking forward to in your conversations with the fellow panelists and with the communities that you'll be reaching into?
So the promoter of LiveWell Initiative Mrs. Pharmacy, Doctor, maybe, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucy Bright is a mother to me. She's not my biological mother, but it's impossible to, well, anyway, I want to believe it's the same thing across West Africa still. I don't know about other places in Africa, but I want to think it's the same. We used to say, and we still say, is only one person that gives birth to a child, but hundreds of people, 200, 300, 1,000 people will train that child. So she's one of the mothers that I have that literally more or less trained me. And that's what I will say, because, and yes, I never really lived under her roof, but I grew up with her and our kids in the same estate, within the same environment. And so, of course, it was no other sort of relationship beyond the fact that if the mother of my friend, who arguably had become like a mother to me, who is one of the biggest cheerleader of my generation, myself, our kids, and all of us that grew up under a roof, so to say, under tutelage within that gather axis, it's rather impossible to say no to her. And she's given me fantastic platforms for years now. Like, she's not doing anything in LiveWell Initiative. If I'm not part of it, I feel left out. So yes, the conference was really set up to look at young ladies within, I believe, the tertiary institution, the medical schools in Lut and all that. They were, in fact, the last one that I attended, all of the young ladies that came were from Lut. And I've had, on the LiveWell Initiative platform, I've had a lot of conversations with young people under the LiveWell Initiative on leadership, building capacity for what is required post-pandemic. I'd like to say this. I remember that there was, WWE, the wrestling, at some point introduced to us, albeit subtly, the New World Order. If you used to watch wrestling very well, you would discover that a time came, they introduced to us what was the New World Order. It was in wrestling. I can remember vividly. And I started to question what was the agenda, in that New World Order. And in fact, before the lockdown, before the pandemic, I was already teaching businesses to be forward thinking about remote work, about flexibility of time at work, and focusing more on task and bringing technology to measure engagement. And so when the pandemic came and there was the lockdown, it was very easy for me and my team, as much as it was easier for some of my clients to say, you've been telling us about this. How do we then implement this? And it became almost easier for us, to sort of embrace remote working. And now it has become a thing globally. But I would say that with the LiveWell Initiative, my focus was about training the next leaders. And these next leaders needed to focus on something totally different, not what you used to be, but totally about something now different. Now you're leading a generation. We call them millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I don't know.
Zs and Alphas are the youngest.
Zs and Alphas now, yes. So now if you focus on those generations, they are content driven, like I said. So if you're driven by content and all of the fun, TikTok is, of course, messing up a lot of the young people globally, but in some places they're using it well. So my focus about teaching them how to focus using technology to develop capacity. And if they can develop capacity from within, first of all, what is most important is about self-discovery. And so in that class, my conversation was more about helping them to find themselves and being able to know why they are here on earth. And if they can identify the specific purpose for their existence, it'll be easier for them to lead others, because leadership is about influence. And so that kind of like was the focus of my engagement at that particular conference.
Sure. So do you find that these young people, what are some of the challenges that you experience in getting them to find themselves? Because there's so much that's telling them that they're this, that, or the other, or something else. So what is the foundation of how you're guiding them to that place?
So the foundation is basically about, first of all, like I said, finding themselves. They need to have self-discovery, right? So if you can discover yourself, so in your discovery, you will then realize that you cannot place yourself side by side with the next person. Man is a product of nature and nurture. Every human being is different. And DNAs are different, albeit some could be similar. So you could have an identical twin and made it difficult to differentiate person A from person B because they are identical, but doesn't mean that they are not unique in themselves. So first of all is to first find that your identity by discovering who you are and why you're here. So that will be the foundation, the first brick of, and then from self-discovery to self-motivation and all of what is required, first of all, as a person, to have a purpose, a vision for your life, develop the right value system. So I always tell people that my number one and most important value system is integrity. If you don't choose that as the very core of your being, anything and everything would go. You would embrace and do anything and everything for whatever makes you feel good. But when integrity becomes the foundation, you will make sure that nothing that you do will jeopardize the fact of that integrity and, that solid nature that you must have and stuff like that. So those are some of the things that I like to push to those young people, that these are the things you must create as the foundation for you to be able to lead other people. If I'm going to lead someone, the person must be able to trust me. And if I am not integrous, I cannot be trusted. And so those are some of just those little things that I try to push to them, that we must know where you're coming from. And first of all, identify who you are. You must go back to the creator and check the manual for your life and say, why am I here? What's the essence of my existence? And if you can identify that, then it becomes easy for you to engage the world and, make money, be happy, and influence others actually to become, a great leader, someone that even after your passing, your legacy will speak for you even beyond your generation. That, for me, are sort of the things that I like to present, before young people.
When you're with these young people, what do they express as their biggest challenges? So, I think we can all observe what we think their challenges are, but from their own perspectives, what do they believe are their challenges and roadblocks for being able to be fully productive citizens, or if they even desire that, really?
So I would say that most of them talk really about the past. They talk so much about, their parents, the older generation, still thinking that, this was what we used to do. And so that's how it must remain. Without, understanding and, embracing the fact that times have changed and generations have changed, so the engagements have changed. And so that usually is the beginning. If you ask a child, it will tell you, my father, my mother think I should do things this way. And so it's sort of like put them in a box, for their own expression. It doesn't mean that their expression is right or correct or the best, but these days you find young people on TikTok from morning till night, and you wonder, what are you really doing? What is the benefit of you standing in front of a camera with a ring light and just dancing for no reason? And because, hey, I just want to create content, because it's all about content. People wake up in the morning, set cameras, go to bed, behave like they just woke up, recording themselves, taking a shower, and having a voiceover over it that, a day in my life. For them, the content is what makes life. And it's just all about the content, all the madness and the shenanigans, whatever you can put out there on social media. But then the older generation feels this is absurd. And the reality is absurd to us. Like, why are you doing all of this? But to them, that is the new engagement. And so their fears, for leading others and all of that, which first of all emanates from that point. The second thing that I see is what I would call the future. Because they cannot see the future, because of the uncertainty of the future, and not being able to have a sort of a real guide and guide, someone who acts like a coach or someone who is like a mentor. it then becomes difficult for them to navigate through time. So that is the second major thing that I've seen as feedback from young people trying to embrace leadership.
So I think that speaks a lot to going back to the politics side of it, is that the people who are in front of them that are leaders are ultimately to a large degree failing them and failing to show them a future that they can believe in and move beyond what is leading them as the leader being social media, right? So anything that pops up is what it is. So yes. I think this is a good place to ask you about mindset. So what is your mindset hack? How do you, something you practice, something you heard of, something that you could imagine as your favorite mindset hack?
So my favorite one would be the very one word that has shaped my life from a sort of a point of, for me, self-discovery. And that word is proactivity, being proactive. And so I can define it in multiple ways. But you see, in the simplest of it is about a sort of being ready for what the future would bring to you. And so for you to be proactive, it's you are not reacting to something. You are not reactive. You're not waiting for something to happen before you engage. So therefore, a lot of the things that I do is a lot of research and a lot of futuristic thinking. So sometimes people say I could be a conspiracy theorist, and I say yes. The understanding that I have is to broaden my mind. So I do a lot of research. When I read the news, when I hear the news, I sort of bring myself to the place where I read in between the lines. So if I see a headline, I say, okay, this is a headline. What could be the opposite of it? And so in my mind, I'm playing out the two scenarios.
Sure.
So that's how I sort of engage, with life generally. So when somebody brings something to me, I don't discard it. I take it and I say, this is one thing. What could be the other thing on the other side? And so if my mind can circle around the entire thing and I can say, this is what I've been presented to, there could be something else on the back end. So if I see a puppet, I say a puppet must have a puppet master. So if I see a die, if I carry a die and I roll it and it's showing me 6, what the design of the die is, directly under the 6 is 1. If I throw a die and I see 5, directly under it is 2. If I throw a die and I see 3, directly under it is 4. So therefore, human eyes can only see 3 dimensions at a time. It does not discount the other 3 sides. So therefore, my sort of engagement to life is that I must know and embrace that there are multiple dimensions to things. And so I am always ready. So that's why I said I would just sum everything up in that word proactivity. So I am always ready for every outcome so that I am never disappointed, even in anyone or in any situation, because in my head, I'm already thinking, this is what I see, but there could be more to it. So all the best that I would do is to ensure that whatever I see at the end of the day, I know what to do because I am prepared for it. Sure. And so that's how, I sort of go with, every day of my life. Yeah.
That's a great perspective. I really like that, especially, you've encapsulated into action. So I really like how you put that. So speaking of other things in terms of thinking ahead, I'm curious about, first of all, what your thoughts are on where you see yourself in the next 5 years. And before that, I want to know about the Yawa app. Tell us about that. I know, because that's a new thing, or newish thing. And so tell us about that and how it might dovetail with who are you in the next 5 years or not.
Okay. So the Yawa app is a safety app. Just in summary, it's a safety app. The Yawa app is an early warning system that is meant to help you and help the citizen and help everyone who has it on their phone. And of course, government and the likes, to sort of set a system to warn people early about a disaster. So it could be natural disaster, it could be human disaster. Natural in the sense of flood, heavy rainfall, earthquake, and all this other stuff. But natural, human hazards like and disasters like armed robbery, fire incidents, and stuff like that. So what we have set when what we have built is a system that allows for that early warning and can help to ensure that our environments are safe. So if I existed within a community, or anytime you have your app on and you are within a radius, the Google map, because it's integrated with a lot of other technologies, including Google. So where you are, it kind of like maps you within that particular environment.
Okay.
And so what then happens is that while you are there, if there is any sort of warning that has to do with any sort of hazard, robbery, fire, any sort of hazard, you are notified immediately for those who are within that radius. So it just automatically pings that location and sends messages to to everyone with that app, in that locality, and helps them quickly, of course, with the Google map, find the easiest, route to leave that environment and where it's safe for you to proceed. So if you are, I believe you say you're in London at the moment, right? So let's assume you're in central London. There are several routes and several, places you can pass out of where you are. And so if there is a sort of a warning for you where you are right now, all you just need to do is to click on the app. You've seen the notification, like you see every other notification, like a WhatsApp message and stuff like that. And you clicked on it and it says, okay, you know what? This is an armed robbery going on in this location. You look at it on the app, you can see how far you are from that place, shut your door, you secure yourself. And, if you must, of course, ring the police and all of that. But if it's something that you need to leave that place, it automatically tells you there's this hazard, you need to leave right now. And then it will tell you which direction to go. So that way you're not running towards the hazard, but running away from it. So basically that's what the app does, and so many other things, right? But it's a lot around safety and warning, people ahead of the incident of the hazard.
Sure.
So where do I see myself in 5 years?
Yeah.
Well, I should put it out there that I will be running again, I said. Okay. Because the last election I ran for governorship of Lagos State.
Okay.
Albeit I felt short at the primaries. So I sort of won the primaries, but I was asked to step down for another candidate, despite the fact that it was against my will. But, it does happen. I just let it go because I didn't want to fight a battle that was very unnecessary.
Right.
But yes, again, in 2027, I should be vying for office again. And so that is where I hope to be in 5 years. Like I should already be the governor of Lagos State in 5 years.
That's a tough job.
No, right?
Are you ready?
Very possible.
Okay.
Am I ready? Yes. I've been ready to lead.
Yes.
Like I said, since 2002, between 2002 and 2005.
Okay.
I was actively doing a lot of research on leadership.
Nice.
So if you talk about, book leadership, yes, I know a lot, theory. Have I practiced with leading people? The answer is also yes. Like I told you about all the different businesses and people that I lead and all of that. So I have a lot of experience leading people. And then you will say, oh, Lagos is a very complex economy. Can you lead, such? And I'll tell you, I've done quite a few number of projects with Lagos State government, albeit some of it not directly, some of it directly. And I have seen, the possibility of leveraging on what Lagos is right now and being able to do pretty much more when I get into office. So it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's not about trying to recreate something that is not already there, but about building up on the successes that the state has had over the years. And of course, cleaning up the shortfalls. Because when a certain set of people remain in a system for a long time, there's a possibility of not seeing the shortfall. So having someone newly coming will see the shortfall and can help clean it up and of course improve the wealth of the state. So that's my mission.
Okay, I like that. And let's hope your Yawa app, because it is integrated into a lot of necessarily systems that are public safety systems and things like that, will also kind of give you a good beat on just intelligence, as you already alluded to, the research intelligence on, how do we make this place better? And so you'll know as part of your platform how to make that place better. So we wish you all the best in your upcoming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we talked a lot about all the work things and how you've built your career and whatnot. Now we want to know who Adebowale is when he is not. When he's not working. So are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Are you a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens?
Okay. So I think I sort of kind of like balance everything. The essence is that I read, and I love to read a lot because, again, this is how I get, a lot of development. I love music. And actually, I would say that one of, I mentioned entertainment, trying to create an entertainment hub. Yeah. So I do music. I used to play the drums. I was learning the piano, but I dropped off. But what I do now is I do sound. So what I do with that is I sort of coordinate all the noise from everybody, and just bring it into one and make music out of the drummer's noise, the keyboard is, sometimes off-key playing and all of that. But anyway, let's assume we have all professionals and we have professional singers and all of that. So I sort of course, part of my foundation in church, I sort of coordinate all of those noise into one and I make sweet music. So I do love to listen to jazz. The only sort of genre of music I don't like is hard rock. I don't like that noise at all. Yeah, I don't like the vibe. So I listen to music as well. Do I watch? Yes, I love watching movies. Okay. And I think those are when I am sort of trying to step away from work. Yeah, I'm sort of an introvert. Right. So I'm quite introverted. Yeah. So once in a while, I just get up and I go to the cinema just alone and go and sit down there and just stare at a big screen and watch a movie and leave. So, yeah. Okay. So, yes, I do watch as well. So if I'm not watching movies, I'm on YouTube watching history, some sort of deep stuff.
Yeah. Tell us
histories and stuff like that. Yeah.
Tell us some of your favorite YouTube channels or a film that you've recently watched that you think would be interesting to watch.
Okay. So sci-fi movies in sort of my interest, history, sci-fi, history, action. Action movies that are more driven, MI6, CIA, FBI, all those, some sort of crime and crime investigation and stuff like that. Of course, I love a lot of action movies around nations, United States, Nigeria, just to because somehow I believe that there's some sort of integration of the truth in those movies and stuff like that. So if I may drop titles of movies, I am currently watching Slingshot. Actually, before we even started recording, before we came onto this podcast, I was watching Slingshot. It's a recent movie and it's about mission to space.
Yeah, that's right.
To Jupiter, I believe, or Saturn, or so. I think Saturn, which is one of the moons in. So anyway, I'm not finished this. I think I'm like midway into the movie. Of course, movies like 300.
Oh, okay. The historical.
Yeah. Historical, yeah. It's a lot about, strategy, Carter, but the Bond identity, the Bond series, 24, James Bond, Mission Impossible series, all those kind of, movies I enjoy to watch.
So music. Yeah. Tell us more about some of the music you like.
Music, like I said, gospel, raps, hip hop, but largely gospel. I listen more to gospel than I listen to others. So I'm much of a church boy, so to say. So I listen more to gospel than I listen to other kind of genre of music. So yeah, anything gospel, you will find me there.
Okay. All right. So we have some film Friday, Saturday weekend binge films for you for titles. So this has been great. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to talk to us about your varied, and there's so much more. Like I have a list. I said, oh, I would love to ask all these questions, but I will have to have you back again to talk more
I'll be
about,
honored to come back.
more about, what you're working on, whatever's current at the time. And so before we sign off for today, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
Okay, so I would like to drop a quote, and I want you to, I want our audience to take deep study into the quote, and then maybe when I return, maybe we could start from there. So this is the quote, right? I hope we can write this down for those who are watching.
I'll put it in the show notes too.
Yes, wisdom is the correct application of understood knowledge. If you listen to that again, you will hear wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? Wisdom is the correct application of understood knowledge. Wisdom is the correct application of understood knowledge. We'll discuss it more, but take a deep look into it, and you will realize that it's easier for us to be wise if we do the right thing. And so that would be a sort of my closing remark. It's very easy to be wise if we do the right thing. I'm sure that we can make the best of humanity if only we decide to do the right thing at the right time.
That part. Thank you for that. Very much appreciated. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. We're looking for up to a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a thumbs up on YouTube and tell a friend. These are good conversations. Please do tell a friend about the LiveWell Initiative's upcoming events that are hybrid, both virtual and in person, in Mauritius and then online. So that information will be again in the show notes. So whoever wants to join can join and meet and listen to speakers like our guest today. And until next time, I'm going to say bye for now.